outside.
Make sure I got the right.
Who are you running against? Is that person here?
He is Albert Pacer.
Oh, right.
I've heard about you, Al. How are you doing?
Hey, Michael Martin. Good to see you guys. We met yesterday in Johnson County, maybe. Yeah, right. Somewhere.
Where you've been, and and putting the name with the face takes a lot, especially if it's in different. You're not used to seeing them in this place or different. Yeah, it's all puts it together.
Hey, Mike, how you doing, man? Excuse my seat here, buddy. Yeah, doing great. How you doing? Yeah, yeah, same old thing.
It just all kind of blends
Yeah,
together.
everywhere. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're in the crunch, so everybody's doing the same thing. Yeah, so it's, Yvonne and Alan Thomas. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So you've been doing good?
That's pretty good.
Chance I get me so little.
Yes.
I got you.
Dad out there in Mecklenburg right now?
Well, it's good to see you.
He was in,
Always good to see you.
he was in at one of the polling sites in Huntersville the other day, handing out cards. He's everywhere. I went to the Friendship Baptist Church down in Charlotte Thursday night for superintendents and lieutenant governor. And there was a precinct meeting down there as well. They had a precinct meeting.
Good.
Yeah, he's been my parents. My parents live in Miamis, and so they've been all over Mecklenburg, Cabarrus, handing out stuff, doing all the legwork down there. That's great.
It's a big state.
I tell you what, these forms.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I heard it said if you begin on time, you can what? End on time. So with that being said, I just want to make sure, I'm Natalie Brooks. I am the co-chair of this Social Action Committee. But before I begin my greetings, I just want to make sure that everyone has a Republican and a Democratic ballot, sample ballot. If you don't, please raise your hand and they will be provided. Also, if you do not have a program, raise your hand and it will be provided as well. So that as we go through the asking of questions, you can use your ballot to follow to see where those candidates are on the ballot. Okay. Technology. Again, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning to each of you. I bring you warm greetings on behalf of President Barbara Smith, the Executive Board, and the members of Rocky Mount Alumni Chapter Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. It is indeed a pleasure to stand and greet you on their behalf and to let you know we are grateful that you are here to meet and get to know the candidates that are seeking your votes in the Tuesday, March 3rd primary election. Give yourselves a round of applause. But if I may take a minute, I would be remiss if I did not give you a little background on Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and our relationship to social action. Political awareness and involvement is one point in our 5-point programmatic thrust. So now, go with me back in time. It is March 3rd, 1913. The place Washington, D.C. Picture, if you will, 5,000 women from all over the world gathered together for mostly one common purpose: to march for the right to vote. That's right. Women have not always had the right to vote. Only white men could vote. Also gathering in that midst of that throng of women were 22 brave, visionary African-American female students from Howard University. Those 22 women were the founders of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. They had the foresight to realize the importance for women, albeit white women, to get the right to vote. You see, they had the thought, today we march for them, tomorrow we march for us. Even though they were not welcome, they still marched. They were instructed to march at the very back of the procession, so they did as they were instructed. They marched at the very back of the parade with what was known as the Black Procession. Despite all of this, the 22 founders of Delta Sigma Theta marched that day with pride. It was the only African-American women's organization to participate that day. Delta Sigma Theta was founded on January 13, 1913 by 22 collegiate women at Howard University. These students wanted to use their collective strength to promote academic excellence and to provide assistance to those in need. In March of 1913, the founders of Delta Sigma Theta sorority performed their first public act. They participated in the Women's Suffrage March in Washington, D.C. Delta Sigma Theta was incorporated in 1930. Today, we boast a worldwide membership of over 300,000 and over 1,000 chapters, nationally and internationally. And in closing, while yes, we want political awareness, that's wonderful, but it's just not enough. We also ask that you get up, roll up your sleeves, tighten your belts, and get involved. Thank you. At this time, if you will stand with me, facing the flag, put your right hand over your heart, and join me in pledging allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Here, on the pulse of this fine day, you may have the courage to look up upon me, the rock, the river, the tree, your country. Here, on the pulse of this new day, you may have the grace to look up and out into your sister's eyes, into your brother's face, your country, and say simply, very simply, with hope, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. At this time, we're going to ask the shepherd of this fine sanctuary to come forth and give greetings. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good to see you here today. Allow me to extend words of welcome as the senior pastor here at Word Tabernacle Church. If you've not been to the Impact Center before, welcome to the Impact Center. We are grateful that you are here. I have two tasks today that I'm going to do very quickly. The first task is, as been said, as pastor of the church, to welcome you here. If you've not been at the Impact Center before, this is the largest building reuse project of its type in our state, where we've taken a former Home Depot, about 120,000 square feet of space, and building it out for the purposes of human, economic, and community development in 8 divisions. And so if you have opportunity before you leave today, tour the facility. We love to have our staff tour you on the facility. We have a media and broadcast center, 50,000 square feet of education space, and a whole litany of other things that I won't get into at this moment. But again, we are grateful that you are here. This is a heavy lift. And what I mean by a heavy lift is getting our community, particularly Nash, Edgecombe, Wilson counties, more civically engaged. And so I want to encourage all of the organizers. Thank you for your efforts. This is hard work, y'all, so can we give a round of applause for those who have done the legwork in organizing all of this? And so this is we do the right things consistently, we'll eventually get the results we're looking for. And so thank you for all the work that you're doing relative to this. I want to also acknowledge all of the candidates that are here. Having run for office on 2 occasions, I can tell you that it is a tremendous sacrifice, both of your personal time and your professional time. So there are people that are elected officers, or elected officials that are already here, those that are running for office. And if you would join me in giving a round of applause for all of our candidates that are here today, I think we should do that. The last thing I want to say under this first umbrella of my greetings is just some logistics. So restrooms are through those exit signs to your left. That's the first order of logistics. Secondly, it's amazing. I speak publicly for a living, and I'm amazed by the vast number of people that get in front of a microphone and don't know how to use it. And so I want to encourage everyone to not have the microphone more than 2 fists away from your mouth. If the microphone is more than 2 fists away from your mouth, we will not be able to pick you up. And if you're eating it, we'll have a hard time picking you up. And so feel free to grab it off the stand. There is a power button that you need to push up to make sure that's there. And then just as a word of warning to the candidates, this is live on YouTube and live on Facebook, and it will stay out there until Election Day. So you won't be able to say you didn't say it, because we're going to have evidence that you have said it. And so this is live now, even as we're speaking. That's my first order of business. My second order of business, I received a phone call yesterday from the governor who could not be here. He asked if I would bring comments and remarks from him. And so I want to officially say, since this is on Facebook and YouTube, that I am now bringing these remarks not as the pastor of Word Tabernacle Church, but as the representative for House District 25 here in Nash County. So allow me to welcome you to Nash County, where I have the wonderful privilege of serving as the state representative in the North Carolina General Assembly. I cannot emphasize enough how important this election is. There is so much hinging on the future of our state and our nation, and it is imperative that we get to the polls and that we participate in the process and that we vote. We know that the decennial census is upon us. We know as a result of this election, there will be redistricting. We know we're going to pick up another seat in Congress, so we'll have 14 seats. We know that means all of the existing seats are going to be redrawn. We know that those who are in leadership in our state government will determine how that redraw looks. And we know that we're on the heels of a major court battle, a court issue regarding our ability as a state to make sure that we're providing a proper education constitutionally to every child in our state. And we've got a lot of issues: education, public health, housing, the list goes on and on. And so I want to thank you for being here. And on behalf of the governor, I want to bring you remarks. And he's asked if I would read his statement, and I want to do that now before I sit down. As you leave, there'll be constituent service guides from my office. I hope that you'll pick up one. And if we can serve you in any way here in Raleigh, please let us know. This is written to the Rocky Mount Alumni Chapter, to Delta Sigma Theta, from the governor's office, dated today's date. Dear members, as governor, I have fought hard for North Carolina, where all people are better educated, healthier, and have more money in their pockets. A significant part of that fight is for fairness, diversity, and equity in all areas, especially hiring, law enforcement, and business practices. In my next term, I will continue to fight for fairness and for stronger public schools, access to affordable health care, and Medicaid expansion, and good-paying jobs. I'm making diversity and inclusion a top priority for my administration and our state because I believe that government should look like the people it serves. For example, I'm proud to have appointed the most diverse cabinet in North Carolina history. I would add it's one of the most diverse cabinets in America. 5 out of my 10 cabinet secretaries are African American. I appointed Chief Justice Sherry Beasley, the first African American woman to serve in the position. I believe she's some of your sorors, to the North Carolina Supreme Court. We need to work together to ensure she is successfully reelected. I also appointed the first African American woman as Chief of Staff of the Governor's Office. I believe she's some of your sorors too. And in our courts, 34% of the judges I have appointed are African American, in addition to the first African American district attorney in Mecklenburg County. Another example I will continue to push is my Executive Order 25, which set aggressive goals for agencies to obtain goods from historically underutilized businesses. Finally, we have been intentional in seeking out and appointing diverse members of state commissions that oversee how government does its business. I will continue to push for diversity because it's the right thing to do and the right way to make sure our state oversight is accurately and fairly represented to its population. The importance of diversity can begin with our state's youngest residents when they look into the face of their first teacher. I'm committed to making the education field more diverse, inclusive, and equitable. That's why I enacted Executive Order 113 and launched a task force to increase teacher diversity. An example of how we can improve is by opening the Teachers Fellow Program to historically black colleges and universities, HBCUs, as I proposed in my budget. Evidence shows that not only do students of color perform better in the classroom with teacher diversity, all students do. Public safety and law enforcement is another area that needs continued reforms to succeed. As the former top law enforcement officer, I know how important it is that those in public safety look like the communities they serve. Successful recruiting of diverse candidates for the jobs continues. And as governor, I put people of color in the top jobs: commander of the State Highway Patrol and secretary of the Department of Public Safety. In addition, law enforcement should emphasize community policing to be part of the neighborhoods they serve, pushing training for de-escalating conflict, and to utilize mental health training and mental health courts to keep those suffering from mental illness out of the criminal court system. Instilling awareness of mental health with law enforcement is critical to wholly addressing public safety, as is extending resources to those released from prison so they can succeed rather than reoffend. Finally, a complete evaluation of our drug laws and a sincere conversation about sentencing reform must occur. Public safety also requires decisive action on guns. I'm a strong proponent of common sense gun reforms to stop gun-related crimes. I've called on the legislature to pass a red flag law to take guns from those who are known threats. I will keep pushing for a universal background check law. Though the legislature has refused to work with me to make our communities safe from guns, I have used my executive authority to make progress. I passed an executive directive to strengthen background checks to keep guns from criminals and the dangerously mentally ill. With this executive directive, we've taken concrete steps to promote firearm safety and responsible gun ownership, including strengthening the background check system and protections from domestic terrorism and improving the public health and incident response. Safe communities should also be healthy communities. I will keep fighting for Medicaid expansion until the legislative Republicans agree. Thousands of working North Carolinians fall into the coverage gap. Let me be absolutely clear. No person in this state should have to choose between basic necessities and access to health care that saves lives. Expanding Medicaid will cover an estimated 500,000 or more North Carolinians with health care. It will boost the economy by $4 billion and create an estimated 40,000 jobs. In addition, while the federal government has to make the Veteran Affairs healthcare system work for their patients, Medicaid expansion would cover thousands of veterans who are presently without care. While fighting for healthy and safe communities, I will also keep working for prosperity for all. I'm greatly concerned about rising income inequality and wage growth, a concern many of us share. I support raising North Carolina's minimum wage, and if a $15 minimum wage bill comes to my desk, I will sign it. Additionally, expanding Medicaid can significantly support those struggling to make ends meet by drastically cutting insurance costs for North Carolina residents. I've also strengthened the HUB office to promote the economic opportunity for historically underutilized businesses in state government, contracting, and procurement that will foster their growth and profitability. In 2017, I signed Executive Order Number 24 to promote diversity and prohibit discrimination in government agencies and government contracts in an effort to make North Carolina a welcome place to all. I am committed to advocating for the issues that matter to North Carolinians, including economic development, living wages, academic achievement, access to health care, and building a more just and inclusive state and society. I look forward to seeking your continued advice as we fight for North Carolina that works for all of us, and will be honored to receive your endorsement. Very truly yours, Governor Roy Cooper. And allow me to add my words of support on behalf of the North Carolina General Assembly and House District 25 for our governor. I believe in the upcoming election, we need to work very, very hard to ensure that Governor Roy Cooper receives our support and he comes back for a second term. He's currently our 75th governor of our state. We also need to work very hard to make sure Chief Justice Sherry Beasley is also reelected. So thank you very much for your being here today. I hope you have a good experience. I'm looking forward to the moderator's discussion and the candidates. And again, welcome to the Impact Center.
While we're waiting for everyone to get seated, at this time, it's recognition of elected and appointed officials and clergy. If you fit in one of those categories, please stand so we can recognize you. I will start. Thank you so much.
I too would like to thank the candidates for coming out and being a part of this Meet the Candidates Forum. And I see we have some candidates that have just come in. Thank you. This forum will follow a nonpartisan, unbiased, and impartial format. The candidates representing all political parties were invited to participate in this forum. There was emphasis on those in contested races in the March 3rd primary election. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for their opening remarks. Time allowance will vary for answering questions posed by the moderators. You will be told the allotted time. Candidates will have 2 minutes for their closing statements. One moderator will pose a set of questions to candidates representing 4 identified offices. The second moderator will then pose a set of questions to the candidates representing the remaining offices until all candidates have had opportunities to answer questions asked. The moderators will alternate asking written questions submitted by the audience. The moderator will inform candidates the order in which they will respond when there are multiple candidates. The timekeepers. A timekeeper will hold up a yellow card to indicate when you have 30 seconds remaining, and a red card when your time has elapsed and you must stop. When you begin to speak, your time begins. Time limits for all comments will be strictly enforced. All candidates are asked to adhere to the time limits given. And we realize that, and we are mindful that some candidates may have other commitments. So at the close of questions, you may quietly exit. Thank you.
When your name is called, please stand. Candidate for Edgecombe County Commissioner, Viola Harris. Raymond Privet, candidate for Edgecombe School Board. Roger Davis, candidate for NC Senate. Albert Pacer, candidate for NC Senate. Patrick Harris, candidate for NC Senate. Alan Wellens, candidate for NC Senate.
Louis Toledo, candidate for North Carolina Auditor. Ronald Newton, candidate for North Carolina Lieutenant Governor. Yvonne Holly, candidate for North Carolina Lieutenant Governor. Michael Marr, candidate for North Carolina Superintendent of Public Instruction. We will have a statement from Keith Sutton, North Carolina, candidate for North Carolina Superintendent of Public Instruction. Marvin Arrington, Nash County Commissioner. I believe. Oh. Oh. The name, Trevor.
So I'm Trevor Fuller, and I'm running for the United States Senate.
Thank you, thank you. We apologize for not having you. But thank you.
Let's give them
Give
a
a
hand.
round of applause. At this time, we will begin questioning with the candidates running for North Carolina Senate. Remember, your time begins when you begin to speak. Question 1, we will begin, and each of you will have an opportunity to answer question 1. Tell us your name, where you live, key information points about your background, and the reasons we should vote for you. You have 3 minutes. We'll begin with candidate running for Senate, Albert Pacer.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Is this close enough? I'm Albert Pacer. I was born and raised in Wilmington. I have been interested in politics since I was 7 years old. I grew up in the projects. We didn't have much money. I had my own business from the age of 12 on. For about 5 years, I was a paper boy. Jumping to college, I majored in American history and minored in political science. And for a kid who grew up in the projects, I was very proud to have been selected for Who's Who in American colleges and universities. When I was in my senior year, I decided that I wanted to be a legislator. And I worked ever since then to get the education and the training that would enable me to do that very well. After college, I was drafted into the Army, and so I had a lot of experience at Walter Reed in the Convalescent Center, seeing veterans coming back from Vietnam who'd been blown all to hell. I got mad about that, and I've been mad ever since. After the Army, I went to Boone at Appalachian to work on a master's in political science, and then Albany, New York, to work on a PhD in political science. I did not finish the PhD. I got involved in local politics, and I became the first budget director in Albany County history. And then I went on to become the Director of Employment and Training for Albany County. After that, I decided that I wanted to become a scuba diver. And then I became an instructor. I was interested in ecology, and so I moved to South Florida, and I developed an expertise in coral reef ecology, and I taught coral reef ecology in the 80s. And then I worked 13 years in the county for growth management in Florida. So I've had a wealth of on-hand experience. I've been running since 2016, when I realized that the governor needed somebody on his team in the legislature to back him up whenever he had proposals. And I've been committed, so I have a sensitivity to the people that have been shut out of the system. I have the knowledge and expertise, and I have a demonstrated commitment to having run. Thank you.
Candidate Wellens.
Thank you. I want to congratulate all of you for coming out and getting involved. You have a wonderful opportunity here in this church and having a pastor who's also a representative in Raleigh. I don't know how he does everything he does. I just told him that this morning. He is amazing. When I have come to this church before, I've come in tired and walked out energetic. The energy in here is on Sunday morning is unbelievable. My name is Alan Wellens. I'm a lawyer, practiced law for 45 years. I'm a farm manager. We have family farms. But my main job now is being a grandfather. When I first ran for the Senate, it was because of my children, or our children. Now, 20 years later, it's because of our grandchildren. Every so many years, we hear that this coming election is a crossroads. This is the real crossroads, and that's why I'm running. The people in Raleigh that are in the majority party don't represent people. They care about corporations, they care about the elite, and they do not care about the most important things, and that is people. It's education, it's economic development, it's opportunities for everybody. When I was in the Senate, I served for 3 terms back in 96 to 2002 before I was redistributed out. Every time a bill would come, I would look at that bill and say, is this the best thing for our children? Will this be a bill that improves their lives? The last term that I was there, after 3 terms, I was elected as the most effective voice for women and children. Back then, I sort of thought that men could take care of themselves. I'm not sure they still can anymore, but I think when you go to represent the people, you need to represent the most vulnerable of the people. The corporations, they have their own lobbyists. all of the pressure groups, they have their lobbyists. The people that don't have the lobbyists are the people themselves. And that's what you want your representative in a legislative body to be representing you. And that's why I'm running. And I ask for your vote on March the 3rd, which is will be an unusual time. We're not used to voting in March, but we need to get out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Fuller?
Thank you and good morning. My name is Trevor Fuller, and I come to you. I am a county commissioner in Mecklenburg County. You know that small little county in the middle of the state? And I serve as a county commissioner at large, which means I represent all the more than 1 million people who live in Mecklenburg County. I am a lawyer by trade. I've been practicing law for the last 27 years. I was privileged to have gone to Hamilton College in upstate New York and Georgetown University for law school. I'm married and we have 2 children. One of my son is in college, and my daughter is a senior about to go to college, so we're about to be empty nesters very soon. But I've been serving on the county commission for these last 4 terms I've been elected at large. And I'm running now for the United States Senate to represent all the people of North Carolina in Washington. You know, I'm kind of surprised I'm the only candidate for the U.S. Senate who's present here this morning. But what I think it's emblematic of is that for too long, people who represent us in Washington don't want to come and speak to us directly, to hear what we have to say, and to take our concerns to Washington. Well, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm running for the Senate. You know, I have a very basic belief that everybody deserves a fair shot to make it in America. That means you have to have a safe, decent, and affordable home to live in, a job that pays you enough money so that you can support your family, health care that is a right for every single American, education for our children, universal pre-K is what I believe in, and a sustainable planet, because climate change is real and we need to do something about it. I'm running because this is an important time in history. Everyone says this is the most important election, don't they? Haven't you heard that for every single election? Well, this one really is. It really is, because our democracy is at stake. We have now a person serving as the president of our nation who is completely lawless, reckless. And there are people who serve in the Senate who are willing to give cover to this recklessness and lawlessness. We've got to reclaim our democracy. We've got to reclaim it, and the way we do it is at the ballot box. So I'm asking for your vote. I'm asking for your support so that we can reclaim democracy for America once again. I'm Trevor Fuller, and I'm running for the U.S. Senate. Thanks for having me this morning.
Thank you. Your next question. You are all from Johnston County. How will you learn about and stay connected to Nash County constituents, issues, and priorities? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you for that question. I live in the upper part of Johnston County, and I'm about 3 miles from Middlesex, which is in Nash County. I am within walking distance of the border with Nash County, and I've possibly spent as much time in Nash, or a lot of time in Nash, because I used to be a long-distance cyclist, and I was involved in cycling in Nash County. I have made a point of talking to people, and I've been running since 2016, so I have been in a lot of different places in Nash County, all the way from the bottom left of Nash County all the way up to Rocky Mount, and since 2018, all of Nash County. So I've been to a lot of meetings, and I am pretty observant. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good question. One of the things is when I served in the Senate before, 3 terms, I represented the same part of Johnson County that is in this new district. I also represented Franklin County, which adjoins Nash County, and it's very similar in many ways. I also represented Vance County and Wilson County, which also adjoins Nash County. And I think that when you're representing people, geographically is not as important as it is that you know the people and know what they need and know the best way to serve them. And that's what I learned in my 3 terms in the state Senate. I'm also running because I also want to help our governor. What the issues that he is working on are the same that we as Democrats in the Senate would be working on. We would try to get his agenda passed. We would get a budget passed. When you don't have a majority of the same party with the governor and the legislature, it's hard to get anything done. We need a lot done in North Carolina to get us all a better life. The budget that the governor proposed would do that. The legislature's failure to negotiate with him is a shame. Where our schools are lacking money, our universities are lacking money, our community colleges are struggling, that they, if the budget had passed, would have money for their teachers, for their buildings. This legislature has shown by its callous disregard for passing a budget that they don't care about people. And those people are, whether they're in Nash County, Johnston County, Wilson County, all of the people of North Carolina deserve better representation.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Mr. Fuller, though you are not from Johnston County, you reside in Mecklenburg County, but how will you, representing us as a U.S. Senate, learn about and stay connected to the constituents, issues, and priorities of people living in this area?
So in this campaign for the last year or so, I've been all across this great state. I mentioned before that I'm a lawyer, and I've had cases throughout North Carolina, even here in eastern North Carolina. In addition to that, my church is founded right here in eastern North Carolina. You know, when I tell people that I represent more than 1 million people, what I'm really communicating is that I'm directly accountable to more than 1 million people. That means when you catch me in Walmart, when you catch me at the grocery store, you can ask me directly why I spent money in this way, why I did this, why I said that. I think that's very important experience for any statewide office, is to know what it means to be accountable to people directly, because it trains your mind in how you ought to be listening to people, how you ought to be engaging with people. And so it's those skills that we need in Washington right now. Our state is the 9th largest state in the country. Did you know that? 10.5 million people in North Carolina. But you wouldn't know it if you heard the conversation in Washington. We've got 3 great things going on here in North Carolina. And our representatives ought to be sending these great messages so that we can benefit in Washington from what we're doing great here in North Carolina. Similarly, we've got people struggling here just as we do anywhere in the country. And so any leader, I believe, who represents this whole state has to understand the struggles that people live, to have vision about what we can do to solve the problems that we experience, and an ability to be able to do the things that need to be done. I've done all of those things as a county commissioner in the largest county in the state. And those skills are what we need in Washington right now. People who understand, representatives who understand the lived lives that people have and can go represent us, and improve our lives. That's why I'm talking about, for example, universal pre-K. I led the effort to do that in Mecklenburg County, and I know that's something that we need all across the state. Our kids need to be educated from birth, and these are the kind of solutions that we need to take to Washington. So you're going to hear from me, maybe more than you want, but you're going to hear from me because I understand the importance of representing real people.
Thank you. This question is for, I'll start with you, Mr. Fuller. What have you learned so far about key legislative issues that are important to this part of the state?
We've got to figure out how we spread prosperity across the state. And too often, I tell my colleagues in Mecklenburg, too often people believe that Mecklenburg and Wake County get everything. Everybody else has to wait. And I say that's wrong. Because actually, the success of a Mecklenburg or a Wake County depends on the success of a Nash County and Edgecombe County and many other counties across the state. Why do I say that? Because we're all connected together. There's only so many dollars that are going around our state for education. And if we want our people to be educated, our children to be educated, we got to work together. So for example, I believe, as I mentioned just a moment ago, that we need to have universal pre-K. So every child, no matter where you are in this state, will have a quality early childhood education. We know how important it is because we see our third grade reading scores. And what do we know for our third grade reading scores? That most of our kids are not reading on grade level. That's not just here in Nash County or Edgecombe County, it's in Mecklenburg too. And what do we know about third grade reading scores? We know how many prison beds we need. Now that is a disgrace. So I believe that we have to invest in our people everywhere. And when we do, we have prosperity everywhere. You know, some like to live in a large urban area, others don't. But that shouldn't determine what kind of resources you have available to you. For example, we should have broadband internet access available all across the state, no matter where you live. But as I told somebody recently, I was in a barber shop, and this kid said to me, "Why should I be involved in politics? Why does it matter?" And I said, because decisions are made for your life in politics. So when you decide not to be involved, you're letting other people make decisions for you. Street lights that are out here, these roads that get built, they don't just get built by accident. Somebody has to make the decision to do that. Decide where it goes, how big it is, and don't you want to be involved in the decision about where it goes, how big it is? That's being involved in politics. So I just believe we need to invest in our people, and when we do that, we have prosperity all across the state.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Mr. Wellens?
Well, I want to commend Mr. Fuller. I look forward to him serving us in the Senate. Great ideas. I think when we look at Nash County, Johnston County, we are in eastern North Carolina. Eastern North Carolina is different from Wake County, from Charlotte. This area really needs help from the state and from the federal government. But what is amazing is this legislature refuses to expand Medicaid. You heard from the governor how important this is, and that's really what is holding up the budget, and it should be holding up the budget. $4 billion could be in North Carolina, and it would not cost us tax money. That's federal money that would come back here. The 500,000 citizens that would have health care, they would be healthy. Their children would be healthier. We would be a healthier society. that money, that the 500,000 uninsured that would be insured would pay doctors, would pay hospitals. Eastern North Carolina, the hospitals are struggling. Some are closing. And it's because our legislature fails to pass Medicaid expansion. I have been talking about this since 2014. I have protested against it. Health care is so important to everybody. Everybody should have the same rights to health care as anybody else. That children that grow up in families that don't have health care do not grow up healthy. They cannot be attentive in school without having health care. Denying them that is a crime, and it's being carried out by the legislature in Raleigh. The other thing about Eastern North Carolina, we don't have broadband. Broadband is being brought in. We need that help. We need to be on a level playing field as much as we can. When we represent Nash County and Johnson County, we also represent all of Eastern North Carolina. It should be looked at as a whole. What is good for one part of Eastern North Carolina is good for all of Eastern North Carolina. I see my yellow card is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pacer? Same question.
We need to understand that what the Republicans have been doing since 2010 is destroying the very foundations of government. In doing that, they have passed all kinds of tax cuts for wealthy individuals, and they have demolished the budgets that are required in order to pay for the programs that my colleagues up on this rostrum are talking about. Yes, we need to have more education. We need to have protection for the environment. We need better infrastructure. We can't get that unless we start talking about money. That's one of my first obligations. One of the things is where I live, I am in the rural part of this district. I have all the disadvantages of living in that district. I am about 20 miles away from the closest hospital. That's the problem. Broadband, when I first moved there, no, couldn't get any coverage at all, even for a cell phone, much less broadband. One of the things that I think is important, since I have been a long-distance cyclist, is I've been all over the area and I have seen the lifestyle of rural people, that is farmers. There's a store that's going out of business now in Middlesex called Manning Brothers. Interesting to go there because there are all kinds of old-time things there that you can't see in just about any other place. Talking to Mr. Manning, there used to be a lot of those kinds of stores around, but what has happened is that corporations have come in and they have taken over farming so farming is not a small business anymore. It's hard to find small farmers. Not only that, the big corporations have started selling the seeds and all of the implementations that the store owners usually would sell. That's a big problem. I have lived in different parts of North Carolina, and particularly the rural parts. I've seen those things. I appreciate small farmers. And I think that's one of the things that we need to be looking at preserving when it comes time to pass legislation in the North Carolina legislature. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pacer. That was the final question for our North Carolina Senate candidates, and we are mindful that you have asked to be excused at this time because of other commitments. So at this time, if you would like to be excused, you may do so.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I do need to go to a funeral. There are too many of those coming.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to pose the question to tell us your name, where you live, key information, points about your background, and the reasons we should vote for you, to candidate Erica Smith for U.S. Senate.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, well, still morning, good morning. And we have hailed from Eastern North Carolina. Growing up in the East, we know that things are spread out, but every vote matters. And so we hail from, just came from Bethel this morning at another forum. I am Erica D. Smith. I'm a 3-term North Carolina State Senator. I am working hard and have been on this trail for the last year to become the next United States Senator. I am the most qualified candidate in this race. I have 17 years of policy and leadership. I was born in Fort Bragg, Fayetteville, grew up in Northampton County, picked cucumbers on a cucumber farm, became a corporate engineer after attending North Carolina A&T State University. I am a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, have dedicated my life to public service and to building opportunities for others. I am the Senator of the Year by the League of Conservation Voters, Senator of the Year by the North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association. I have a 6-point platform for moving us forward, for getting this state and nation moving in the right direction. And as the qualified, competent, experienced candidate in this race from Eastern North Carolina, I know how to close rural and urban divides. And that's what this journey is about. Looking forward to telling you more about my platform.
Thank you. At this time, may I pose the next question since you're coming in so that we can hear a little bit more from you. And the question is, and you have 2 minutes, how will you learn about and stay connected to constituents and issues and priorities in the Nash County, Edgecombe County areas?
Absolutely. When I first started serving in the North Carolina Senate, I represented Bertie, Juan, Edgecombe, Hereford, Martin, Northampton, Tyrrell, and Washington counties. I now represent Beaufort, Bertie, Martin, Northampton, Vance, and Warren counties. I've served about 23 counties in Eastern North Carolina, so I'm already connected. And so I am very abreast of the issues that we face as a dynamic in Nash and Edgecombe County, understanding that first and foremost, there is a part of North Carolina east of I-95, even though there are appropriations that don't say that in Raleigh, North Carolina. How I keep connected is many of you may have already attended town halls with former Senator Angela Bryant when she and I served in the North Carolina Senate together. We have worked very hard to keep our constituents engaged and informed. We hold town halls, virtual town halls. I've participated in virtual town halls with my Congressman G.K. Butterfield. I started on this journey. I'm an engineer by training, an educator by trade, and I am an evangelist by call. And so in all of my work in the last 20 years in North Carolina dedicated, I have had the opportunity to connect all over the East and even the western parts of our state. As an engineer, I have worked on re-engineering the policies and criteria in Raleigh so that they work better. In the 2017 budget, which was a Senate budget, I and Senator Don Davis negotiated the largest appropriations that Eastern North Carolina had seen in 10 years. And that's not by my word of mouth, that's by the Office of Budget Management. When we looked at shifting appropriations, doing investments in rural parts of the state, economic engines of RAP East. As an engineer and a manufacturer and a technologist, I understand the importance of job creation, but also as a business incubator. And I'm happy to say, since we've had new leadership, the red sign is up, my time is up. I am so honored to work with Representative Gilliard as well in the North Carolina House as we work toward these appropriations.
Thank you. And your final question will be, what have you learned so far about key legislative issues that are important to Nash County constituents? 2 minutes.
Absolutely. Broadband is very important, business incubation, job creation, but also the issues and fighting the issues with Nash Rocky Mount Public Schools. We work to keep those schools together and understanding that with the Leandro update that came out after 25 years, our schools are not resourcing our students properly. So what I've learned about legislation is that we have to have student-centered funding that appropriates the resources as needed. This is a model used in Louisiana. The more affluent parishes, the wealthier parishes fund students at $5,000 per student, but the high poverty funds students at $10,000 because it takes that much to close the resources. I have a 6-point platform that has been paralleled by editorial boards all across the state. Democratic and Republican reporters are showing and going on record saying I have the most comprehensive and the strongest platform for closing that rural and urban divide. Rocky Mount may be doing okay in some areas, but the rest of the parts, the rural parts of the county, are struggling. Agriculture is our #1 business, and we need to have appropriations for promoting sustainable agriculture, understanding education, job creation, agriculture, environmental stewardship. We need clean air and clean water. As we know that we are an environmental champion, and that's been recognized by the industry and by the stakeholders who are very well abreast of my record. It is very strong. It's unparalleled. Also, equal opportunity and justice and protections, because too many black and brown people are being locked up, and too many black and brown people are being disenfranchised by a criminal justice system that is unjust when it comes to many of us. And so as we look at our progressive platform for moving us forward, this is about creating opportunities in our community, building on what we have, harnessing and leveraging the resources that we have, and making the most of them. And that's very important and critical.
Thank you. Thank you to all the candidates who are running for North Carolina Senate and the U.S. Senate. We appreciate your time and your talents. Thank you. Now we will move on to the next.
Yes, the next one is Lieutenant Governor. This is for candidate Ron Newton, followed by Yvonne Holly. Mr. Newton, tell us your name, where you live, key information points about your background, and the reason why we should vote for you for Lieutenant Governor. 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm going to stand. It's a little
That's
tight
perfectly
here.
fine.
My name is Ron Newton. I was born and raised in Westchester County, New York. I now live in Durham, North Carolina for the last 40 years. In my career, I have been a professional football player, a vice and narcotics officer. I graduated from North Carolina Central University Law School. I was elected and served as the president of the school board in Westchester County. I've been the business manager of one of the largest public employee unions in the country, representing 1,200 workers at Duke University. I have been a chief financial officer of a mid-sized corporation, and I've been a business owner for the last 30 plus years. The reason you should vote for me is because every decision I've ever made in my working life has been a tough decision. I am a leader, and I know what we need to do. Now, I listened to the letter that was read from Governor Cooper, and I support and sustain everything that Governor Cooper is talking about. But one of the things that I do know from traveling around this state 4 different times is nothing will change for you and I and the average working class person if we don't get more money into the budget. In 2017, when the Republicans eliminated corporate taxes, it made North Carolina a regressive tax state, simply meaning the more you make, the less you pay in taxes. That can never be right. We need to reinstitute the corporate taxes. We need to create bracketing, a marginal tax rate to ensure that everybody pays the same amount of taxes on the first dollar earned and the last dollar earned. In North Carolina right now, we have a wage income inequality gap that is $1 to $739. That simply means if you made $45,000 in a single year, someone in the upper 3 to 5% in this state made $35 million. That can never be right nowhere. This is a problem of turning it around to progressive politics. If you don't add money to the budget, 4 years from now, we will be right back here again feeling like we had empty promises and no solutions. It's time for a change in North Carolina. In our economic base, we are ranked 40th. That is ridiculous. We're ranked 39th in education. Listen, the wind is at our back in 2020. And I believe what Dr. King said, now is the time. Now, for us to make real the promises of democracy.
Thank you. Same question, Ms. Holly.
Good afternoon. I think we're in the afternoon now. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here today. I am North Carolina State Representative Yvonne Lewis Holly, and it is my privilege to be here again at Pastor Galey's church. He's also in the House of Representatives with me. And I've been in the House of Representatives for the past 8 years, and I've been a gladiator on the battlefield. I am also a graduate of Howard University and a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. And for 25 years in my adult life, I have worked in North Carolina state government as a procurement contract specialist. I know where and how the money's spent. I know the inner workings of state government. And I have fought many battles for Medicaid expansion. I mean, all the issues you've heard up here, I've been fighting for in the General Assembly. But I have a unique thing that I'm fighting for, and it's about us. Right now in my district, I have 3,700 school-aged children living in hotels. Housing is not available. I have people that call my office every day that are falling through the cracks with food insecurity, low wages. As a result, I have a platform, and my platform is called Ally. It's called the Affordable Living Initiative. It is bringing together public-private partnerships, businesses, for nonprofits, people across the state from urban to rural, because I understand my district may be in the city, but it is treated like it's rural. Urban and rural together to find solutions to these issues. Part one, attainable housing on all levels. Part two, food insecurity. I was instrumental in getting a food desert bill through the House, which allowed to put nutrient-rich foods in corner and convenience stores in communities. So far, they've been implemented in some of the areas that were hardest hit by the hurricanes. The other part is jobs, wages, living wages, and jobs and economic development. I'm tired of bringing these jobs to North Carolina. We give them incentive to come, and then they bring 2,000 people here with them. Hire from here, train from here. And I just don't mean in NC State and Carolina. Come to all the communities. Come to Rocky Mount and train some people right here in Rocky Mount for some of those jobs. And last but not least, if you don't have transportation to get to work, how are you going to get there? There are many ways. I have a micro transportation plan that I'd like to see implemented in some areas, and I have been a gladiator. I am a child of the late civil rights era where I integrated the schools, and I have fought for people all my life. I am not running to be something. I'm running to do something. Thank you.
Candidate Thomas, would you like me to repeat this question?
No, thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am Commissioner Alan Thomas. I represent Hope County, which is the west side of Fort Bragg in the city of Rayford. I also have a second home in Greenville, North Carolina, where I graduated from East Carolina University. I see one of my classmates here. Quickly scanning the room, I see also fellow commissioners, Edgecombe County Commissioner Viola Harris, who's been a warrior. And I see Commissioner Wells of Nash County, who's here as well. I just want to take a couple of minutes, explain why I believe I'm the best candidate for this job. As you see, there are at least 3 African Americans running for Lieutenant Governor. There's actually 4. It's going to be a tough choice. It's going to be a tough choice. I'm proud that about 13 years ago, I joined a fraternity called Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated on the campus of East Carolina University. I learned a lot through that ordeal of joining that organization. Never give up. When things get tough, you keep moving forward and you keep fighting. When I was a child, I grew up in one of the poorest counties in the state. My mother was a teacher in our elementary school, and there were days where she couldn't afford for my sister and I to eat lunch or breakfast. So she would give me a note that I would take to the cafeteria lady, which said, "Please allow my son to eat, and if you do, I'll pay you back at the end of the month." You see, there were days in our household where the ends didn't meet. And that cafeteria lady, each time she would smile and give me a hug and pray for me and say, "Baby, I love you," because she knew what it's like to go through hard times as well. As a leader now, as a county commissioner, I know what it's like to fight for everyday people, because I'll never forget what it was like for my mother to go through those struggles when I fight to increase teacher pay. And I'll never forget what it was like when that cafeteria lady gave me that hug. Because I don't know if you know or not, but our non-certified personnel are the only state employees who don't have a $15 minimum wage. We need to change that, because it was people just like Miss Vicky, the cafeteria worker, and our bus drivers and the janitors who taught me to make sure I kept my pants up, because my pants were raised when I left the house, but when I got on the bus, I lowered them a little bit because I thought I was cool. But I couldn't get away from them, and they would say, "Boy, I'm gonna tell your daddy." And I quickly raised it because my daddy believed in using that belt I had around my waist to put on my back, and I didn't want to feel that. But when I was in East Carolina, my dad, who was addicted to drugs, he broke into my mother's home and he took her life. That was the day that my life changed, because I ended up being homeless. My car was repossessed because I didn't know how to live without my parents. But I prayed to God that one day, if you allow me to get out of this situation, I promise you I will make sure that I help other people who are going through it. And that's what I've done. A lady in South Rocky Mount, I came up here, I saw some of you at the event where we gave a car away. She won the car, she had 6 children, and she called me the other day and she said, "I used the car that you gave away at that event to drive a taxi so that I can pay for my children to eat." That's what kind of leader I am. I don't talk a lot. I get to work. Thank you.
Next question, and we'll start with you, Ms. Candidate Thomas. What are the major duties of a lieutenant governor, and what plans do you have to fulfill that office that will benefit us and the community? 2 minutes.
Major duties of lieutenant governor is, number one, preside over the Senate. The state Senate, just like we have a vice president in federal government, the lieutenant governor is like a vice president in state government. So in the event of a tie vote in the Senate, if they're locked in a tie vote, the lieutenant governor breaks the tie. That's very important this time because, as you know, the maps for the Senate and House were just redrawn. And many experts believe that we're going to pick up seats, the Democratic Party, speaking for the party that I represent. They're saying that we're going to pick up seats in the Senate. If we pick up 4 seats, it will be even between Republicans and Democrats in the Senate. And you're going to need a strong lieutenant governor who has the ability to make decisions on behalf of the over 11 million people in this state. How am I going to use that role? They also serve on important boards like the Board of Education. So when I talk about increasing teacher pay and pay for our non-certified personnel, I'm not just talking and blowing smoke. I'm talking about what I'm gonna use my bully pulpit to fight for. And I'm gonna add a quick thing to the education thing of what I'm gonna fight for on the Board of Education, because the current state superintendent is running for lieutenant governor. And it is my prayer that Mark Johnson is the Republican nominee and I get a chance to go against him so I can challenge him on some of the things that he's done to our students over the last 4 years. But when I was in school, I was a basketball player. I don't know if we have any athletes in here. I don't see anybody that can beat me in basketball right now. But I was a basketball player, and in order for me to play basketball better, I had a basketball coach, right? My basketball coach was to help me get better at basketball. We need academic coaches in many of our schools because some of our students, we just keep passing them up even though they're failing. We need them to be able to stay after school, have free transportation to and from home, and have free after school care while their parents are at work, and to be able to receive the help and care that they need. Many of our students may not be able to learn in big classroom environments. Let's hire academic coaches, which are teachers, to work on our behalf and to help our kids. Thank you.
Candidate Newton.
Yes, thank you very much for the question. The most important role for the lieutenant governor is succession. If something were to happen to the governor and he was incapacitated or unavailable, the lieutenant governor has to be able to step into that role. As my colleague said, he is also the president of the Senate, but the lieutenant governor is probably the most important position in state government because it's the only position that has executive and legislative authority. He is the head of the Economic Development Commission. He also sits on the Board of Education. He also interacts with the Superintendent of Public Instruction. He has 13 appointments to various boards. So this is not a role that some people want to say you can put it in the background. No, it's not. It's very, very important. As having been the president of a school board, I seriously understand what should be happening on the North Carolina State Board of Education and how we should be interacting with the Superintendent of Public Instruction to change some things. But I'm going to go back to what I'm saying, because you have a controversy right now in state government where the superintendent decides independently of the Board of Education to do things and to spend money. And see, these are the kinds of issues that affect us. And budgetarily, we cannot benefit when we have people spending money that's basically unauthorized. But because of the way the system is, the Superintendent of Public Instruction feels comfortable in doing what they do. So we need to revamp our system. We need to look at things in a different light. And I'm going to reiterate this as I go through these questions. We need to look at the budget in North Carolina to be able to afford change in many of these programs and many of these things.
Candidate Holly.
Thank you. Well, I don't want to repeat things that have already been said because those things are the duties of the Lieutenant Governor. But one that has not been mentioned is a couple of things. They also sit on the State Board of Community Colleges, which falls into that workforce development plan that I was talking about a little bit earlier. So you'll be an intricate part of that. Right now, our community colleges fight against each other. They're all like their own little islands, and we're not doing things cohesively, and this needs to be done. And then we need to train for the industry that's coming to our area. You don't need to train in Raleigh for aerospace if aerospace is not coming to Raleigh. You need to go to another area to do those kind of things. But the reason why I'm running for Lieutenant Governor is because several years ago, because we have a difference in the governor and the lieutenant governor's race, right now we have a Democratic governor and a Republican lieutenant governor, there's a void there. And our current lieutenant governor has used that time to destroy our educational system with vouchers and things like that. Now, I'm a former educator. I used to teach special needs kids soon after I graduated from college. But what I'm saying is that there's a period of time there that you can do something. That period of time is why I'm doing my ally program. I want to take this initiative and I want to make sure that people across this state's voice are getting heard. I want to bring people out of poverty. I want to strengthen our middle class. I want to make sure that when those jobs come into town, I will be able to talk to those people because I would be the lieutenant governor. I want to make sure that I then transfer that to the community colleges and to our K through 12 to prepare those students for those jobs that are coming to our areas. I also want to bring, so people tell me all the time, I don't want to stand in line all day for food. You know, I don't want to wait for you to give me something. I want to earn it. I work 2 jobs. If I work 2 jobs, help me buy the food that I need for myself. Thank you. Time's up.
Thank you. Candidate Holly, you mentioned, there's an old saying that my bishop would say that you've stepped into my text. The next question is, the Lieutenant Governor serves on both State Board of Election and Board of Community Colleges. How would you use those roles to advance education in North Carolina? 2 minutes.
Yeah, I stepped on it a little bit. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I didn't realize it was going to be the next question. But K through adulthood is where our education starts. I learn something new every day. It may be sometimes what not to do, but I learn something new every day. So education is continuous. And we need to prepare a lot of our high school students for jobs when they get out because everybody's not meant to go to college, grad school, and what have you. We need to make sure, though, that our students have the basics and are prepared. The Leandro issue that just came up, where we're now going to have to put a lot of money in our school systems. I think that that's great because that's where it needs to go. another thing that's real critically important about education. When we have failing schools, we don't need to bring a private company in to take over. We need to bring, it needs to come out of DPI. We need to bring a team of North Carolina educators in, and not to take over, but to teach the staff there how to do the job, so when they leave, you got a competent, capable staff now that knows how to bring these kids up out of poverty and how to bring them up to academic level. We don't need somebody to come in, do it for a few years, contracts over, and they're gone. Then the kids fall back down. Let's work with what we have in these communities. We need to be community building, not tearing communities down. I also feel that with the workforce development piece, we need to retrain people from jobs that have disappeared in some of our communities. We have communities that have had factories and different industries that have disappeared. Well, now there's a lot of things that can be done on computer. You don't have to live sit in an office and work on a computer all day. You could do that anywhere in North Carolina if you got broadband. So those are some of the things that we need to also bring, and that I will promote, that you can live anywhere in North Carolina and you could get a decent job. Thank you.
Candidate Newton?
Same question?
Yes, sir, same question.
Yes, thanks. Well, you know, my company has a contract with one of the community colleges in Durham, North Carolina, and we have a vendor's registration, and we do teach taxation and advanced taxation. I find that there is the Leandro decision, because you got to look at K-12, but then you got to look at higher ed, which is two separate things. But the Leandro decision really isn't about increasing funding. What it's about is appropriation, county to county. In other words, it was based differently than the Kansas decision. And so what they're saying is some of the counties that weren't appropriately funded, that's what they're looking at changing, to make sure that we kind of level the playing field, to make sure that we don't ignore any particular county. See, now, I'm going to go back to what I've been talking about. Right now, we spend 58% of our budget on education, whether it's K-12 or higher ed. That number cannot increase unless we put more money into the budget, which means we have to go back, because anybody in the legislature will tell you now they have increased teacher salaries and benefits maybe for the last 4 sessions. As a matter of fact, North Carolina has increased funding and spending in education by 7%, but it's not showing up because there's no money there, and they can't put money in unless there's money in that budget. So we've got to get it straight. We need to reincorporate the tax rate for corporations. We need to make everybody help. We need more money for more programs. My time is out. I yield.
Yes, I started by naming a couple of elected officials I saw quickly, and I was tagged to a Facebook post by my friend Deborah Jordan. So good to see Tarboro City Councilwoman Deborah Jordan here as well. When it comes to my role as Lieutenant Governor and how I'll use that in education and community colleges, I'll quickly just talk about what I've done as a county commissioner, because if someone's running for higher office, you should be able to dissect what they've done in the office that they currently serve in. You know, some people don't want to talk about what they've done, but I just want to take a brief second to say our high school is an academic powerhouse and also a trade school in one. So I've looked all around the state, and what we're doing is very different from what a lot of schools do. Our top students are going to go to Duke and UNC right now. Our last year's valedictorian has a full academic scholarship at Duke. But the 60% of our students who are not going to go to college, we don't see them as failures where I come from. You know, we look at them as having the ability to start immediately on day one and get a good job, where many of them are making more money than their parents because we prepared them for trades. We have an EMT rescue squad that was built inside of our school. It has cameras on the inside of it, so while the students are working on the mannequins, their teachers on the outside looking on the TVs and reporting back through the monitors what they're doing right and wrong. We have a fire tower that's 200 feet tall, where our students learn how to be firefighters. When they graduate, as soon as they come off the stage, they're beginning work as a firefighter. We also have a restaurant on campus, a barbershop on campus, a cosmetology shop on campus. We have carpentry, mechanic shop. We just started drone technology. And we're working on now CDLs so the students can learn how to drive trucks. We need to do this statewide. You know, while I'm going to fight to make sure our community colleges have what they need, our students shouldn't have to pay in community colleges to get what they can get in high school. You know, so we need to do this, especially school systems like Rocky Mountain. And lastly, as my time, because she's getting the red sheet ready, I see her right there. I see you. I see you. With my last 30 seconds, community colleges, we need to be innovative again. I've read somewhere that North Carolina is where the first flight took place. They're calling for snow sometime soon. I don't know if anybody's seen it on the news. I don't know what part of the state, but those trucks that have the shovels in the front, they're not doing anything. They're not getting the ice up. What if our community colleges developed an invention where it's like a transfer truck that had a heater in it and a suction that sucked the water up, so the front melted the ice and the back sucked the water up into compartments? We need to make sure we're able to invent things and be innovative again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Thomas, candidate Newton, and candidate Holly. Ms. Brooks.
The next set of questions are for candidate Marvin Arrington for Nash County Commissioner, candidate Viola Harris, and candidate Raymond Privet. But before I pose the questions, I want to remind the audience that the candidates will be answering questions from the written questions from the audience. Make sure that you have index cards and a pencil, and write your questions down if you have some burning questions that you want to submit, and give it to the ladies that are walking around with bags to collect them. And thank you. Question 1. Tell us your name, where you live, key information points about your background, and the reasons we should vote for you for the office you seek.
Good afternoon. I am Marvin Arrington, and I live in Battleboro community with my wife, Carolyn. And I've been working at Rocky Mountain Engine Plant for the last 34 years. I'm a machinist. I graduated from Fayetteville State University with a degree in sociology. And I'm running because I believe that I'm just like my citizens that I'll be representing. And that is, I punch a clock every day, I get to work on time, and we do the basic things that make companies really work. Also, I have been a hard worker that represent my community everywhere I've been. I'm originally from Halifax County, and in 1978, I ran for school board, and I became a school board member. And Reverend Privet over there, he was employed with us at that time, and I became the chairperson. At the time we needed to build a new high school, we passed an $8 million bond referendum. We passed that. I was a part of that, building that high school. Then like I said, I left there. I served 2 terms, and I came over here to Battleboro Community Drake's. And in Drake's, I settled into the community, and as I settled here, they wanted to build a community center. So I started working hard, and we eventually built that community center at Drake's Community Center. Some of you have been there for an event. So my point is that wherever I go, I intend to work hard, and I've worked hard here in Nash County. I've been the chair of the Democratic Party. And during that time, we have built a good party, and we are strong, and I intend to represent my district very strong for the issues of safe community and public education. Public education is so important. And our community college that does training for us to get us ready for the industry that come and the future jobs. So, as a commissioner, my public, the people that I represent, can be confident that I will work trustworthy and represent you to the best of my ability. Marvin Arrington, candidate, Nash County Commissioner, District 1, vote for me.
Thank you. Ms. Harris?
Good afternoon. I've got to stand up because I've been in the car for 3 hours trying to drive back from Winston-Salem. That's how important this forum was to me, to be here and be a part of it. I'm Viola Harris. I've been a county commissioner in Edgecombe County representing District 2 for 19 years. During those 19 years, I have also been a full-time employee. I've worked the last 10 years at Edgecombe Community College in the Basic Skills Department, one of the most important departments at community college, because we're there to make sure that those young people who have failed in high school have another opportunity. Those young people and older people who have lost a job they've had a long time have an opportunity to come back, get training, get their high school diploma or their GED. That's how important I feel that department is. I am married to my high school sweetheart, Pastor Mitchell Harris. I graduated from North Edgecombe High School in the big town of Leggett, North Carolina in 1976. I learned how to be a servant while I was in high school. I tutored children who were in a group home across the street. Not only that, on the weekends, I sat with ladies so that their husband, who was a barber, could go and cut hair. So I've had an old soul a long time. I've always been a person who wanted to represent those who didn't have a voice. That gave me the opportunity these 19 years. I am determined to be reelected so that we can finish some of the things that we've started in Edgecombe County. We've got a lot of industries that are coming in. I want to see them in fruition. I want to make sure that the folks who want a job have a good paying job. I want to make sure that our children in Edgecombe County have that sound basic education that North Carolina is supposed to give them. I want to make sure that the children on the northern end of Edgecombe County, where I'm originally from, get the same things that the southern end of Edgecombe County gets. That's why, as a commissioner, we work closely with our Board of Education. You can travel around the state and find out that's not done everywhere. But Mr. Privet and I are on the same page. Mr. Privet was my children's principal, so I know who he is. I am here because it's important that we have someone who has leadership skills. I'm the past president of the North Carolina Association of Black County Commissioners. I'm past president of the North Carolina Association, the Alliance of Black Elected Officials, mayors, city council, commissioners. That means we all work together, and that's who I am. So I'm asking you, if you want someone who will stand and voice your opinion, I'm the person you need back in that seat. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Mr. Privet?
Madam Moderators, ladies and gentlemen, thank you first for your presence and your interest in this most important process of democracy. I am Raymond Privet, and I'm a candidate for re-election to the Edgecombe County Public Schools Board of Education, District number 6. I've served the citizens and the students of Edgecombe County in an educational capacity for the past 36 years. I began my career in the Tarboro Edgecombe County school system as an assistant principal and basketball coach. From there, I moved to principalships or interim principalships in 8 of the 14 schools in our district. I have also served as a principal mentor and a tutor. I'm in my first term as a member of the Edgecombe County Schools Board of Education. My platform is simple. It is to provide a high-quality, equitable education for all children. I come offering energy, time, knowledge, proven leadership, experience, and a passion for the education of all children. I am running for re-election because I have a passion for the education of children, and I still have something to contribute. Our schools are improving, but my goal is that all 14 schools in our system meet or exceed growth. I have 30 years of policy and leadership experience. You see, I know school from top to bottom. I know communities, and I know children. As is the board's duty, I come knowing school law. I don't have to learn it. Because I have studied it, I have lived it, I have enforced it, and now I've had an opportunity to experience the process of writing school law. I believe in lifelong learning. I believe in educational, intellectual abilities for all children in an equitable manner. I believe that all children can learn if their teaching learning experience is delivered to them in an appropriate, equitable manner. All children don't learn the same. I pledge to all the children in Edgecombe County my untiring ability to work untiringly to make sure that they get everything that they have. I pledge to them that the education will not be based on any cultural ethics or any financial difficulties. I am Raymond Privet. I'm focused, committed, and I am ready. I ask for your support. Edgecombe County District 6 Board of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Privet. The next question, and you will have 2 minutes to answer it. As candidates running for county commissioners and school board members, how will you learn about and stay connected to your county constituents, issues, and priorities? 2 minutes. We will begin with Mr. Privet, please.
I am already connected with my county's county commissioners and all of the other entities that affect the education of our children. We as members of the Board of Education stay connected because we know that there is a domino toppling effect. One entity affects the other, so I am always you'll see me at county commissioners meeting, you'll see me at the city council meeting, you'll see me all over the place trying to get things that affect my children. I am a lifelong learner myself. Therefore, I will not sit on my laurels just at board meetings, but I am always involved in a statewide manner as well. I am on the North Carolina School Boards Association, the National School Boards Association, the District 3 School Boards Association. I am involved in all of the things that bring together, and the Black Caucus National School Board, so that I can get all the information that will help my children.
Thank you, Mr. Privet. Ms. Harris, how will you stay connected to your county's constituents, issues, and priorities?
Like Mr. Privet, I think I stay connected. A lot of people said, oh, you're going to drive back 3 hours. I was at a state meeting, but my constituents are the people who put me in office. So yes, I had to come back. I represent District 2. Those are the people who vote for me, can vote for me. But I serve all 50,000 who live in Edgecombe County, no matter which side of the county that they live on. Even though we're elected by district, I could run countywide because I go to Pine Tops, I go to Princeville, I go to Speed, I go to all of those locations, not just for church, but to visit, to go to their stores, to find out what their issues are. So I try to stay connected. I volunteer at our schools. One of the things I would like to see all of our commissioners do, volunteer at our schools so they can know exactly what's going on. I volunteer with our community college. I also volunteer with our senior citizens, the people that we can count on at the polls. So that's how I plan to stay connected, to continue to do exactly what I do, make sure that I am where the citizens are. I'm at the grocery store. I have time to answer a question. That's what I'm elected for. I have been a commissioner 19 years. I have missed 4 meetings. Whether it was a budget meeting, a retreat, 4 meetings in 19 years. 3 of them I was representing Edgecombe County and Washington, D.C. at our Legislative Goals Conference. I have been the only commissioner of all 7 to attend for 19 years. So I stay connected so that I can bring back information to my constituents, how things are working other places that can help Edgecombe County. So I plan to continue, if I'm really elected, to make sure that I know what's going on with Jackie down there in Battleboro, as well as what's going on with Lesterine and Whitakers. It's what I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Mr. Arrington, same question. 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, presently in my county, I am a representative with the CRD Council, which is a Community Rural Development. We have like 7 communities that come together, and we do different events and charities for our community. And those 7 communities come together, the presidents of each community. We come together at least once a month, and we meet and we talk about the issues in each community. I'm the president of our Drake's community, and also the way I stay connected is I'm also a union member, 150 in our local plant, And also, I like visiting churches, and that's one of the ways that I stay connected with the citizens. Anytime that you're around, people like to say you go in the stores and you're visible. I'm just an ordinary guy. Like I say, I'm a machinist, and I'm not someone that you can't reach. So I'm going to stay connected with the people that I'm associated with, because they're going to see me in the community, and I'm going to hear the issues that they have. And a lot of those issues you will not hear unless you're at the trash dump where you're emptying trash, or you're someplace where they are working. And that's what I try to do, is be amongst the people that I serve. It's mostly, my district is a rural section that really doesn't include the towns and cities. So out in the rural country part is very connected to, like to say, the earth. So I'm a part of that, and that's how I stay connected. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arrington. Your next question, and we will begin with Ms. Harris on this question. What have you learned about the regional issues we face, the city, the town, and the county relations, Nash County and Edgecombe County relations, racial demographics and relations, counties and school board relations, and Nash, Rocky Mount, Edgecombe? It's an extensive question. I will restate it. Nash, Rocky Mount, Edgecombe economic development relationships. What have you learned about these issues, and how will you represent your differing constituencies on these issues? And I'll restate the question if you desire me to do so.
As many of you may know, relationships is key to getting anything done. Going across party lines, going across county lines is the only way you're going to get anything achieved. We believe in Edgecombe County that we want to work with anybody that's willing to work with us. We have an open mind. And also, you know, when you want to get economic development done, if you regionalize, it's easier for you to get money, funding. Sometimes that is difficult with Nash County. But we're not giving up, because we can't let some of the folks who represent Nash County hold Nash County back or hold Edgecombe back. Because what's good for Nash is good for Edgecombe, what's good for Edgecombe is good for Nash. We have children on both sides of the track. So as a county commissioner, I will continue to strive to work with Nash County and any other county that's going to make sure that the people in my county get what they need. That is one of the reasons I was in Winston-Salem. We had Mr. Falwell, the North Carolina Treasurer, was one of our speakers today. He talked about the retirement plan. We also had speakers from AT&T talking about broadband, which is so important, especially in rural Edgecombe and rural Nash County. So I will continue to work closely as they will let us work. But if we have to go by Nash County, whatever it takes to make sure that our citizens get what they need is what we will do as Edgecombe County Commissioners.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Same question, Mr. Arrington. I will restate it if you would like for me to do so. Okay, 3 minutes, please.
Okay, as far as economic development and public education, yes, Nash County Board of Commissioners has broken or tried to distance itself from Edgecombe County. They give various reasons, but my position is that Edgecombe County and Nash County are almost one. And one of the reasons because the people associate with each other. We go to work at the same place like I do. And what's good for the region is good for Nash and good for Edgecombe County. The students in Edgecombe County deserve the same as Nash and Nash versus Edgecombe. And it has to be a working relationship that's important for the students and the citizens. So the issue is what's going to be best for the citizens, what's going to be best for our children. If that means working together, we need to work together. And the position that I have as far as that's concerned is it's not just about little tax dollars or little tax pennies. We got to do what's right for our citizens, and we got to do what's right for our kids. Our kids are most important, and that matters more than anything else. And that's what I'll try to do when I get on the Board of Commissioners, is that I will voice the opinion that the citizens that I represent want to be heard.
Thank you, Mr. Arrington. Same question, Mr. Privet.
It is imperative and very important that any school east of Raleigh work together with all entities and develop a positive relationship with one another. Though we have 6,000 students over in Edgecombe, we also have 2,000 in Nash, attending the Nash schools. We must develop relationships with those people there. We're always going to the town council in Tarboro, asking them for things and use of lands and buildings for our students to expand. We're always going to different agencies talking about, because we're poor, all schools east of Raleigh are basically in the same boat. We need each other. It is a connectedness that if you're going to succeed and do what you need to do for your children, you'd best develop relationships. Now, we're coming to a meeting with the Nash County, with the Nash people, now Edgecombe people next week, the county commissioners, to talk about this. We're ending the 4 years of the school merger thing. We gotta work with some people to develop what we're gonna do with that. While that merger says that Nash County can raise their per pupil expenditure as high as they want, and we must meet it with the 2,000 kids that we have there, leaving beside the 6,000 that we have over here. We must develop a relationship with the county commissioners there, with the county commissioners on our side. We can't exist without the monies that we get from county. We have little or no industries in our town or city. And so we must develop relationships that will help for the benefit of all of our children. It's imperative. We cannot stand by ourselves.
Thank you, Mr. Privet. That was your final question at this time, and I want to express my gratitude and thank you for the county, those candidates running for county commissioners and the school board. Thank you for your time.
Next question is for NC Auditor Luis Toledo. Candidate Toledo, tell us your name, where you live, key information points about your background, and the reasons why we should vote for you for auditor.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. It is an honor for me, and I'm grateful to be at your event to show up at this candidate forum. My name is Luis Toledo, and I am running for state auditor. As a former assistant state auditor, I'm running for this position because I have seen and I have heard across the state that accountability here in North Carolina is not where it needs to be at. And we also know that many critical programs have been overlooked at the state level for many years. As a former assistant state auditor, I know that that's not acceptable, and I'm trying to change that. I will tell you that this position is not about making laws, and this position is not about auditing your taxes. That's the IRS. This position is about protecting the taxpayers' money at the state level and making sure that state agencies and public universities are spending money as they should be. It is also about bringing effectiveness to existing state programs, but I've been wondering for many years, how can we do that if we're not actually conducting audits of our state agencies to improve services, whether it's at the Department of Public Instruction, whether it's on the Department of Health and Human Services, whether it's at the Department of Environmental Quality. We need to do much better. In terms of my background, I am Hispanic. I am the son of immigrants. I am a father to children that attend our public schools. I am a military veteran, and like I said, I am a former assistant state auditor. I was raised by a single mother, never met my father, and I was raised by a mom who never learned how to read and write herself. And from that, I understood the value and the power of education. Through her lessons, I was able to be the first in my family to obtain degrees in business administration, in cybersecurity, and public administration. I've gone on and I have over a decade of auditing experience I'm a certified auditor, and I've conducted audits at the State Department in DC under President Obama. Looked into issues dealing with global hunger and food security, and at the Pentagon focused on national security issues. Here in North Carolina, I worked for 4 years in this office, the State Auditor's Office, and I proposed some of the groundbreaking audits that had never been done in our state. I want to bring a proactive vision to this office so that we can actually improve government programs to better serve all communities in the state, and that's not happening right now. Currently, I'm an audit manager at Ernst & Young, where I audit Fortune 100 companies, and I'm also an adjunct professor of public policy at Elon University. I'm happy to be here with you and answer any questions you may have. I do believe that in 2020, it is time to promote more accountability in our state at the state level. Thank you.
Thank you. As a reminder to the audience, if you have questions, please pass them to the end of your aisle and the collaborators will pick them up. Next question, Mr. Toledo, candidate Toledo. What are the major duties of the state auditor, and what plans do you have to fulfill that office that will benefit us and our community? 2 minutes.
Okay, 2 minutes. So this position, like I said, it's not about making laws. It is a position that you conduct work based on government auditing standards, and those are issued by the Government Accountability Office in DC, and it applies to all states. Responsibilities for this office include making sure that we conduct the federally mandated audits every year from a financial standpoint, that when people report, there's reported fraud, waste, and abuse at the state level, we look into that. And I believe one of the also major responsibilities is to conduct performance audits, which again is an area that is not being done at this time. In terms of my approach, I want to bring a proactive vision similar to what GAO does at the federal level to promote accountability. And that what GAO does every year is they publish a list that you can see on their public website, where every year they list the high-risk areas, and that guides their work. Here in North Carolina, we don't have anything like that because, as we have seen over years, it is more, the approach has been reactive. I want to take a proactive vision where we say every year we're publishing at the state level the list of the high-risk areas. One of them, when we look at the news, it has been clear that at the Department of Public Instruction, there's been a lot of mismanagement, a lack of accountability. So for me, when it comes to promoting public education, that is one of the areas that automatically goes up there. When it comes to promoting the environment, making sure that everybody in our state has access to clean water, clean air, that is something that is not being looked at from an accountability and improving those programs. So one thing that I want to do as state auditor is every year put out a list that says these are the high-risk areas, and this is what our office is focusing on for the year. That sets direction for the legislature to also understand we need to be promoting and looking into these areas to bring value to the people.
Thank you, candidate Toledo. Next question. Thank you. What do you know about diversity and inclusion on the state auditor staff? How would you address diversity and inclusion in that agency? 2 minutes.
I have to, when it comes to that question, I have to start by saying that as a Hispanic myself, the son of immigrants, when I look at the demographics of our elected officials in North Carolina, you won't find a Hispanic in the state legislature at all. You won't find a Hispanic in the Council of State. There's no elected Hispanic in our state legislature or at the state level. So for me running, this is the first time. I take that seriously, and I promote inclusion, equality, and I've stood up and I've made it clear that I'm against any and all forms of discrimination. For me, I understand the value of diversity because I've seen it in different organizations. And in my opinion, from what I have seen, the most effective organizations are the ones that bring diversity in thought, diversity in background, diversity in what we represent in terms of communities across the state. So for me, and I've applied it in different places. When it comes to staffing, I am a big proponent of improving diversity because I know that at the federal level and at the state level, the numbers do not match what our populations are. And that is whether you're a black member, Hispanic member, or even in the Asian American community. We've got to do better.
Thank you.
And,
Last question.
I want to just add one more thing. When I promote and I talk about racial equity, that is an area that has never been discussed at the state auditor's office, and I want to change that. Because when we talk about statistics, that is based on facts and evidence, and I have no problem pointing out racial disparities in North Carolina in an official government report. I find it, red card, thank you.
Thank you. Last question, Candidate Toledo. The auditor has broad powers to audit, investigate, and review receipts and expenditures of the state funds by the state and local government and private entities, and a powerful role on the local government commission that allows or prohibits law government facing of major projects. How would you use these powers in any way that will benefit, that will be different? How will you use that to be different?
When it comes to this question, what I'll say is that the focus is on promoting accountability and transparency. And I will say that when it comes to accountability, it does not fall on one person. So yes, I am running statewide, all across the state for the position of state auditor, but that does not mean that accountability falls all on me. It is also on the people of our state to promote accountability. And we have auditors in counties all across our state. As state auditor, my focus is making sure that all auditors in every county, city, regardless of government level, that they understand how to interpret auditing guidance and that they understand how to interpret the law, because that is how we approach transparency and accountability in making decisions, no matter what area of government we're dealing with, whether it's a program that deals with transportation or education. It is a matter of understanding how to apply the auditing standards. So when it comes to working with local commissions or the federal government, I want to be a better bridge, and actually not be a better bridge, but actually be a bridge to ensure accountability. Right now, the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People gave me their endorsement because I'm talking about the fact that there's public housing in Durham County where the federal government said, hey, we're failing the people. There's life-threatening conditions. The facts are there, and nobody did nothing. I want to be a bridge to be able to say, hey, this is the federal government inspection to promote accountability. What is the state and local government going to do about this? And basically bring light to issues that need attention. That is my role, and that's my commitment to the people.
Thank you so much. And again, we do thank you for being a part of this platform. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next and final is public instructions. We have a statement from Keith Sutton. He's a candidate for the State Superintendent of Public Instructions. His representative, please come forward. Ms. Mary Bennett Sutton.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And thanks for coming. I received a note that said, Ma, all of the above should be enough to fill the time, and you don't have to download anything. Thanks, Keith. Keith Sutton is an education innovator, public servant, entrepreneur, and advocate for children and families who has married his position for education to his expertise in relationship management. He's the founder of Focus Ed LLC, a firm designed to support organizations in the improvement and transformation of education. Prior to Focus Ed, he spent time as the Excellence Director for BEST North Carolina, an education think tank committed to improving North Carolina's educational system through policy and advocacy. A Rocky Mountain native, Sutton has served the community in Raleigh for nearly 2 decades through work on boards and committees, including the state's NAACP, Triangle Urban League, Healthy Schools Task Force, Raising Achievement and Closing Gaps, and also the Blue Ribbon Committee on the Future of Wake County. Keith has served as a member of the Wake County School Board of Education since 2009 and served as the board chair in 2013, and he is currently the chair of that board. He is a member of the Triangle East chapter of the 100 Black Men, Unity Lodge 864 of Prince Hall Masons, and the Iota Iota chapter of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. His top 3 priorities. Priority 1, work with the General Assembly to provide the appropriate level of investment in public education to ensure success for all North Carolina students. Priority 2, overhaul the state's strategy and approach for turning around and improving the state's lowest performing schools. And priority 3, evaluate the organization structure and capacity of the Department of Public Instruction and engage in a restructuring that would be more responsive and improve service delivery and support. Why should people vote for Keith? I've been on the Board of Education of the largest system in North Carolina for the last 10 years. Just this year, we were the first district to raise the minimum wage for bus drivers to $15 an hour in North Carolina. We gave teachers the only teacher raise that they got in Wake County because they did not get money from the commissioners to do so. The state refused to do it. Experience and education matter. We've seen what 3 years of inexperienced leadership looks like as the head of the Department of Public Instruction, and we can't afford another 4 years of inexperience. Thank you.
Thank you. The following questions will be posed to candidate Michael Marr. Thank you. And we thank you for wearing your red and white.
Yes.
Question number 1 is, tell us your name, where you live, key information points about your background, and the reason why we should vote for you for the office of Superintendent Public Instruction. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, I'm sorry.
All right, thank you. First, I want to thank Delta Sigma Theta for having me here today. I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope I can maybe steal 1 or 2 votes away from Keith Sutton. I know he's the local guy. So my name is Michael Marr, and I am a career educator. I've spent more than 2 decades in this state in various capacities working in education. I grew up in a working class house. My father was a railroad worker. My mom did a number of odd jobs to help make ends meet, and I was the first person in my family to go to college. So first generation college student. I went to college on a series of Pell Grants and Stafford loans and summer work. And so I know what it's like to have to make your way through an under-resourced public school, to have teachers who could advocate for you and push you and tell you you could be more. And so when I went to college, I chose to become a high school teacher because I wanted to give back to kids in the same way that teachers gave back to me. And so I was fortunate to do that. I took my first job out of college as a high school teacher in Kernersville, North Carolina, teaching high school science. My wife went to graduate school at Wake Forest, and we lived in Winston-Salem. We later moved to Raleigh when she finished, and I took a job at Sanderson High School in Raleigh. At the end of that year, my first daughter was born, and I was fortunate to take nearly 2 years off as a stay-at-home dad, and then went on to graduate school myself. I earned a master's degree and a doctorate in education, and had to make a decision at that point. What did I want to do with the next phase of my career? I initially planned to go back into public school teaching to work as a mentor and supervisor for young teachers. My master's and doctoral work are in instructional supervision, and so how you prepare and support beginning teachers. But my wife and I decided that the next phase for me would be to try to have an even greater impact And so I had a couple of job opportunities, and I chose to take my first faculty position at St. Augustine's College in Raleigh, where I worked to prepare diverse teachers for North Carolina Public Schools. In my work at St. Augustine's, I did what every young faculty member does. I taught classes, I mentored students, I supervised student teachers. But I also had an opportunity to help rebuild that program. We redesigned the Field Experiences program, and I built their continuous improvement system, their assessment system. After that, I had an opportunity to move to NC State as an administrator, and I took my first job as the assistant dean in the College of Education at NC State, helping to build one of the most effective teacher preparation programs in the state of North Carolina. A little over a year ago, I decided that it was time to try to have an even greater impact. We've seen nearly 4 years of inept leadership. We need a state superintendent who has expertise, experience, and vision. I believe that I am the most qualified candidate in this race. I have more than 24 years of experience in this work. I'm the only candidate with both national and state policy experience, and because of that, I've developed the most comprehensive platform in this race, and I hope to share some of that with you.
Thank you. Next question. What are the major duties of the Superintendent of Public Instructions, and what plans do you have to fulfill that office that will benefit us and our community? What is something the state superintendent would do that would be noticed as local citizens? 2 minutes.
Okay. So the state superintendent has a unique role. You serve as both the agency head for the Department of Public Instruction, which is one of the largest state agencies in North Carolina, and you serve as the chief advocate for public schools in the state. And that is an important role. The first thing that has to be done when we have a new superintendent is that the superintendent has to repair the relationship with the State Board of Education. So the first thing I would do is work with Chairman Davis to do just that. We need the state board, and we need the superintendent, and we need the lieutenant governor all moving in the same direction, advocating for the right policies in North Carolina. One of the first things that I've talked about doing is reforming accountability in North Carolina, eliminating school performance grades, and moving to more comprehensive measures of school performance. One of the other things that I think you would notice immediately is in the restructuring of the department, I would move to create a district and school transformation services division, moving all of the different parts that we currently have in the department under one umbrella. So we have federal programs that exist under one area. We have the Renewal School District under a different one. We have the Innovative School District under a different one. We have mentoring and coaching programs in a different place. That doesn't make any sense. So what happens is we have an individual school or an individual district that is running a number of different programs, all reporting to a different associate superintendent in the department. We need one point of contact. We need to have all of those individuals being able to talk to each other so that we can identify the most effective practices so that we can improve school performance for children.
Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Last question would be, what are your plans for improving low-performing schools, especially in rural and low-funded areas? 2 minutes.
Yeah, so I had an opportunity a week ago to come out to Edgecombe County and actually do roundtables with high school students. And we had a couple hundred high school students talking about local issues they find in their schools. So what are some of the things that I am very interested in doing? So one of the things I mentioned earlier was this idea of accountability reform, broadening our school report cards to include equity measures. We need to ensure that every child in North Carolina has access and opportunity to high-quality programs. We need to be measuring their access to AP courses and IB, but we also need to measure, do they have access to AIG programs? We also need to look at things like suspension rates. We know that black and brown boys are disproportionately suspended for the same infractions that white children commit. We need to ensure that we have equal opportunity for all children, so we would start with accountability reform. I also am interested in some innovative programs. So some of the students had said to me, what will you do for us for the summer? So everybody knows about summer learning loss, so kids go home and then more affluent children don't have the same kind of loss. But beyond the summer learning loss, what do we do in terms of kind of programs? And that's a question that I hadn't been asked the entire year on this campaign. One of the things that I learned a couple months ago is that the Department of Commerce actually does community block grants. Well, what if the Department of Public Instruction partnered with Commerce and we offered block grants to schools and communities to build summer programs? Why shouldn't Nash County or Edgecombe County have a summer robotics club for children in the same way that kids in Wake and Mecklenburg County have that option? So we need to think about innovative ways in which we can provide resources. The other thing I would mention is, you've heard a lot about Leandro. The Leandro report came out. I believe I am still the only candidate in my race who has actually read the 300-plus page report. It's one of the things I do. I invest heavily in understanding policy. And so within that report, there are 7 key priorities. They are all part of my platform. And that's not because I could envision what was going to happen. It's because we've known the challenges we face in North Carolina for years. We've just not acted on it. We need someone at the Department of Public Instruction to now steward that process.
Thank you. This question is for you also, candidate Marr. It's from the audience. Every child is not going to college. Finances is a concern. No one wants to pay a college loan for the rest of their lives, I can identify. How can you assist with having students graduate and be workforce ready for various trades?
Yes.
It is from the audience.
Yes, it's a great question. About 2 years ago, in my work as the assistant dean at NC State, I was actually a senior policy fellow out of a group out of Washington, D.C. And my policy fellowship was actually focused on looking at apprenticeships in North Carolina. And so I did a study of apprenticeships, and I looked at Apprenticeship NC, and I actually visited Davidson Community College, which has a great apprenticeship program. They partner with a company called Egger, which is a big wood products manufacturer. Egger provides 21 apprenticeships to 18-year-olds every year. They pay them $40,000. These kids work 40 hours a week, but they spend 20 hours a week at the community college. They earn their associate's degree full-time. They work the other half-time. They work the other half-time at Egger. And when they finish that degree, they have an opportunity to stay on at Egger either as a machinist, or they could actually move into human resources or some other aspect of that company. Now, that doesn't mean we can create the same kind of program everywhere in North Carolina, but what's happened there is other smaller employers have also created apprenticeships. So there's a plumber who now takes 1 apprentice. There's an electrician who takes 2 apprentices, and they all have these different opportunities. Apprenticeship NC is nothing new, but we have no relationship between Apprenticeship NC and the Department of Public Instruction or our public schools. We need to provide a pathway where high school teachers understand that these opportunities exist, that they can help students move into the apprenticeship program. We need to create pre-apprenticeship opportunities inside of our high schools so that kids have the requisite skills to then move into employment, move into the community college, and learn a trade or a skill that will benefit them for the rest of their life. And so I think in it was about 2008 when we started to transition our state away from the kind of job sector and more towards pre-engineering, and we moved, starting to push everyone towards college. That was the wrong move then. We need to come back a little bit and think about the different opportunities we can provide to children so that every one of them is prepared for life and work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This question is for the candidates running for Lieutenant Governor. Being that and this is coming from the audience, and we would like for each of you to address it. Being that there are 3 or 4 African Americans that are qualified for the position, would you consider finding a way to work together to avoid splitting the vote and giving the Republican Party the opportunity to steal that state position?
I believe the people will have to decide when it comes to splitting the vote. We've all been running for over a year, so our campaign started February of 2019. So, the working together is seeing how these results come out on Tuesday, March 3rd. There has been precedents. There's been other times where there were a lot of African Americans and one Caucasian, and the African American won. So it's not something that can't be done. We want to get out here and earn your vote, work our hearts out, and hopefully you all will be able to decide who the best candidate is. And we will support that candidate. Whoever wins, we all have a great relationship. If Representative Holly invited me to her home to eat dinner, and I would, I hope she does, because I would accept. We just had Valentine's Day yesterday. Nobody cooked me a nice meal. I was by myself working on the campaign, but we have a great relationship, so we're going to be rooting for one another.
I agree. I agree. I was the first one in the race, and it was known that I was in the race when others got in. I cannot penalize somebody for wanting to do what I'm trying to do. So I have to respect that. We all feel that we can win. We all feel we have something different to offer. I feel I have the most to offer. And, but we have all cordially, as you could tell, we're cordial to each other. We get along, and whoever gets the nomination will be supported by the rest of us. And so what we want to do is we want you to have an opportunity to make that choice.
Thank you. The next question will go to the candidate Mar. And it's fairly lengthy.
Okay.
And it is coming from the audience. As an educator, we sit through forums, read articles, and other media and hear the phrases, "We'll train teachers and ensure our teachers are competent," or ensure equity, as if teachers are not trained or competent. It is exhausting and defeating. How will you support the training of teachers?
Yeah, so I've spent the last 16 years doing just that. I started, as I said earlier, as a faculty member at St. Augustine's. I moved on to NC State, worked in teacher training and development. I tend to use the word teacher development as opposed to teacher training, and I know there's some debate as to why people would say one or the other. But what's the role of the state superintendent and the Department of Public Instruction in helping to prepare teachers? One is that advocacy role. And so again, working with the Lieutenant Governor and others to do things like expand the Teaching Fellows Program to ensure that we have an HBCU as part of that program. But also think about the ways in which we can incentivize teachers to work in some of our most under-resourced districts. The other role of the state superintendent and the department is to provide professional development. We've seen a retreat over the years of professional development coming out of the Department of Public Instruction, and what's happening is districts are providing PD, and often it is what they like to term spray and pray, right? Somebody gets up there and they just kind of throw it at you, and then you go back to your classroom. We know that that is the least effective form of professional development you can provide. One of the programs that I helped develop was actually in micro-credentialing of teachers. And so this is the idea where you go in and you have very particular sets of knowledge that we want teachers to be able to learn and use in their classroom. So an example would be the digital learning competencies, which the state developed a couple of years ago. Teachers work in this online, and they develop work products that demonstrate they know how to do that work. We did this in my work at NC State with undergraduates. I would look to expand some of that work, and so we know we have some state priorities that we want to work on. Trauma-informed practice is one of them. Colleges of education across the state have not done a great job in preparing teachers to work in trauma-informed practice. Social emotional learning is a huge issue now in our schools, and again, colleges of education are just now catching up to this work. It's complicated, it's difficult, and there is an expertise there that needs to be provided. So to scale that, we need to think about how the department can do that using innovative practices like micro-credentialing or digital learning. And so we need to create a series of opportunities for teachers from the department that has not been done in the last several years. And so I would look to develop things like social emotional learning, trauma-informed practice, culturally relevant pedagogy, and some other pieces that I think are pretty critical at this point.
Okay. Thank you. At this time, because you've been so dedicated and each of you have stayed with us, the remaining of the forum, we appreciate that. We truly do. At this time, do you have one more question?
Yes. This question is for candidate Toledo. $600 million of property taxes overcharges and it's coming from the audience, in the state of Michigan against ADOS, or Americans descendants of slavery. As North Carolina auditor, will you enact or need this to be checked for overcharges across North Carolina? Do I need to repeat that?
Yeah, I think this is an area that I'm not familiar with. I would like to get a better understanding of, and I think I would be open to any people in the audience that want to ask me about it, provide a little bit more context. Because I'm not sure where the money is coming from, and I don't know if this is something more. I think you mentioned Michigan. I would like to get a better understanding.
It says $600 million of property taxes. I guess they're being overcharged for property taxes.
Okay. When it comes to the taxes approach, I think it's important to know that taxes, federal taxes, state taxes, county taxes, and every level of government that is providing that taxes, they can change that based on who's voting there. So every county or at the state level, I know there were some folks on the lieutenant governor's race that were kind of talking about taxes. I'm not sure at what level this money they're being overcharged. Anytime I hear property taxes, I think local. Okay, so at the federal level is not setting that rate. That is something that is set at the local level. When it comes to the when it comes to the state level, we're talking about people's income, and that's the emphasis right there. So I think when it comes to promoting accountability, making sure people are not overcharged, I can say that I am committed to working with the different associations in North Carolina, because they do exist, that support all 100 counties in North Carolina to say, hey, how is this tax base looking? Because that is important. The different county government structures need to understand, do we have enough money to provide services for the people? So from my standpoint, I'm committed to meeting with anybody, any association in North Carolina to make sure that the numbers are proper. People are not being overcharged. So if somebody was to report that to me, I would say, okay, this is who we need to connect with. And I would work with that, whoever called me, to make sure that loop was closed, to make sure that it was addressed. From the state auditor's office, I will say that it's not like that. It doesn't fall on the state auditor, but my role is to make sure that I can connect the constituents with the people that do that. The other thing I will say is that from state government, the closest that I can think of is when people have to register their vehicles and get their vehicles inspected. That's money going into the state of North Carolina that then has to be redistributed back to the counties, right? So there's a collaboration there. My job is to make sure that that is actually working effectively and that people are not being overcharged from that standpoint. So there is some connections there, but when it comes to that particular issue, I would need more insight, but I am committed to discussing with the people that oversee that more directly.
Thank you, Candidate Toledo.
Candidate Toledo, the person that gave the question in the audience, if you would see them afterwards, there are some people that would like to speak with you afterwards. And at this time, we do thank you for hanging out with us. Please, at this time, give your closing statement.
What, 30 seconds? A minute. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here because I care about the communities all across North Carolina. As state auditor, I need to go out to the mountains, I need to go out to the beach, I need to be here, and I will be here. And I can relate and I can connect with different communities to say, where is the state failing them, and what kind of assessment can I do on whatever government program to find out what can we do to improve it. That's my commitment to you, to bring a proactive vision, to actually bring value to you. I think in 2020 and beyond, it is time to be proactive. We cannot just take a reactive approach when it comes to auditing. I also urge all of you, when it comes to the candidates that you want to win, we're counting on your support, and we're counting on you to bring others to the polls to vote. This is not an election to hold back and find an excuse. I'm thankful and I'm encouraged by the fact that all of you showed up. It is on us to bring out those other folks that are not here to vote. It is critical in 2020. Before we get to November, we got to get through this primary. You have options, and I stand here before you as somebody that is committed to doing more for the people and bringing value. That is my passion. That is why I got my degree in public administration. And that's why I've kind of worked behind the scenes for over a decade to try to improve things. And I think in this office, it is time for change, and it is time for a set of fresh eyes to basically say, what can we do better in this office to better serve the people? And I ask for your vote. Luis Toledo for State Auditor. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you all for being here. And it takes a lot to come out and sit for a little over 2 hours and listen to us talk about some of these things. So again, thank you for being here. I think one of the things that's really important, I've talked a lot over the last year about running for the job of state superintendent. I'm the only person in my race who's never run for office before. I've not been a politician. I've been an educator. And when you think about the job, I think this has become really important, and I think this applies to certain races. I think the auditor is a job. I think the treasurer is a job. The state superintendent is a job. You oversee an agency. And if you're going to oversee an agency, you should have the credentials to do that work. You should have experience, you should have expertise, and you should have some vision. The state superintendent needs to, in my opinion, the state superintendent should be someone with broad experience in education, preferably teaching experience. You should also have experience in program development and experience in administration, overseeing an agency of some sort. I think you also need to have experience as an advocate and experience in policy. And so, as I said earlier, I was a high school teacher. I was a college professor in teacher education. I was an administrator in a college of education. I also most recently was the president of the association that represents all of teacher preparation in the state of North Carolina. So there are 51 colleges and universities that have teacher education. I was the president of that association. And in that role, I got to advocate both statewide and nationally in teaching and teacher education. And because of that, I had an opportunity to work on legislation with legislators as well. And so I am the one candidate in this race with experience in all of those things: teacher, teacher educator, advocate, and policy experience. And so I hope when you go to the polls either today or tomorrow or March 3rd, that you'll consider me for this office. So again, my name is Michael Maher, and you can find more about me at Maher, M-A-H-E-R, 4nc.com. Thank you again.
My name's Alan Thomas, and I'm running for Lieutenant Governor. I lived in Rocky Mount years ago. I lived right off of Sunset Boulevard. I worked right off Atlantic, right beside Fountain Women's Prison. Brother Ellis, he worked with me on third shift. I worked first shift. I know this community. I know the leaders here already. You know, I don't have to start trying to learn people and try to feel my way around. I know the issues. I know the anxiety when hurricanes come in this community. I know what it's like wanting leaders to hear your pain and to be able to stand up and give you the resources you need to fight back. I know about Rocky Mount Senior High. I've been to many of their games. And I want to be a fighter for you in Raleigh. My son Anderson is 10 years old. He is the love of my life. But before he was born, I would read to him because I was taught that children can hear you. When he was a baby, we would have him listen to classical music because we were new parents, and we heard that classical music was great for brain development. In kindergarten and first grade, our son struggled in school. And in third grade, we had a parent-teacher conference where the teacher looked me in the eye and said, "Your son probably will not pass the third grade." I don't know if anyone's ever experienced that with a child that you care about, but I cried going home. Because my son, I know that education is his key. But after I wiped my tears, his mother and I wrote a check to the best tutors that money could buy. And last week, I went to his awards day ceremony. He's performing above average, and he got on the AB honor roll. That would seem like a success story. But the reason I'm running is because I know without a shout of a doubt that there's another father somewhere around here that loves his son just as much as I love Andy. But he doesn't have $5,000 to pay the tutors the way that I did. And the question is, will we allow these students to keep moving up and being further and further behind? Or are we going to elect leaders who's going to stand up and do what we have to do to make sure that truly no child is left behind? So I'm ready to fight this race. We're not going to stop until the race is over. And on March 3rd, I want to look at the results and I want to zoom in on Rocky Mount, North Carolina. And I want to know that you have my back. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Again, I'd like to really thank everybody for having this forum this afternoon, and I am State Representative Yvonne Lewis Holly. As I said earlier, I'm the longest one. I have more experience in the legislature than anybody. I've been a gladiator. I've been a fighter all my life. I'm a child of the civil rights era from integrating the schools. I have fought. Everything I did, I had. I was the first black cheerleader in the state of North Carolina, predominantly white school. You thought I would have had a good year? Well, you know it wasn't a good year for me, because the day after I made cheerleader, the Klan was standing outside the school waiting on me. Okay, so as a young child, I learned early that it was not about me, that everything I did was about the community and about our people, and I carried that weight on my shoulder, and I've worn it well. I learned that if my intentions are pure, to help someone and not to try to reap profit or to move on to do some things, that I could accomplish a lot of things. I learned the power as as a 13-year-old girl, what I was capable of doing to make and implement change. And I have done that all my life. Currently, I work with people in the homeless shelters. I've been poor. I've been middle class. I've been in the General Assembly. And I've been in the boardroom. I understand you. I've been a single parent. I understand you. I understand you on a lot of levels. Plus, I have had success in problem solving, both in the General Assembly. And I reach across the aisle because I don't vilify the person. I think they think differently from me, and I need to change their minds. But I see them as people. And that's how we're going to change things, not with this rhetoric that we're hearing from up there that I won't even talk about, and the divisiveness, but we got to start working together. And I know how to do that. And that is why I'm running. I'm not running, as I said earlier, to be something. I'm running to do something. One more thing, and this I know the ladies will understand. You know how you don't like people to talk about you. People don't like to be talked about. Talk about me. Talk about me everywhere you go. Talk about me to my face. Talk about me behind my back.
Go ahead.
Tell you everybody at the beauty parlor, the nail salon, your church, your school, everywhere you go about Yvonne Lewis Holly, who's running for Lieutenant Governor. And I ask you today to please vote for me. Thank you.
Once again, audience, join me in thanking and showing our appreciation to all the candidates for coming out, giving of their time, answering your questions, and helping us to become a more informed voter. Join me.
We're almost done. The voting information you will see. We just want to make some valid points. The primary voting is for March the 3rd. Early voting, of course, we know began on February 13th and will go through February 29th, Monday through Fridays from 8 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. and Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 3 o'clock p.m. And you do not have to have photo ID to vote in this race. You want to do evaluation forms?
At this point, you know, when you put on a program, you have to evaluate the effectiveness of it. So at this time, if you have your telephones available, if you will take them out, and I would like the link, because we're trying to come into the 21st century, so we're going to take the evaluation using your phones. You have. Oh, and then there are some that if you do not have your phone available, there are some hard copies that we're passing out. And it's only a 6-question evaluation. But there is a link, and that's the link. If you will put it in your phone and hit enter, and it will bring it up. Just take that quick evaluation. Once you hit submit, it will be sent to where we can look at it, get some data from it, and know how effective this forum was for those who were in attendance. And I want to say personally to each and every one of you on behalf of our membership, thank you for coming. We appreciate your patience, your attendance, and your dedication, because now you are, in fact, an informed voter, a more informed voter. Thank you.
Okay. And of course, we know social action involves everyone. Therefore, Delta Sigma Theta sorority could not have done this alone. So at this time, I have the pleasures of introducing our collaborators. You may come forward, our collaborators. Chi Omega chapter of Alpha, Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Please come forward. Sarah Belfield, can you get us a photo when everyone comes forward, please, of all of the collaborators? Thank you. Anywhere, we're gonna all form a beautiful. Edgecombe County Human Relations Commission. Please come forward. Epsilon Gamma chapter of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. Please come forward. Rocky Mount chapter of the NAACP. Let's give them all a hand. Continue to come forward. Epsilon Sigma Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Please come forward. Alpha Omicron chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Please come forward. The Wilson Rocky Mount Harbor chapter of the Lynx Incorporated. Please come forward. And lastly, but definitely not least, the industrial, sensational ladies of Delta Sigma Theta Rocky Mount Alumni Chapter. Please come forward. Ladies and gentlemen, these are our collaborators. We could not have done this without them. When we called, they answered our call. And for that, we are deeply grateful and thankful to each of them. Let's give everyone a hand. We're gonna get a photo. Might usually use the steps. Sarah Kernan, where we need to, what's the best place we can get a photo? I'll stay on the ground, my knee. All of the collaborators, please come forward. We're gonna use the, okay. Please go up on the steps in the pulpit.